Good evening one more time, dear participants, to the guests to Culture House and the forum. This session is going to take place fully in English, so if you require simultaneous interpretation into Russian, please take the headsets from our visitor experience team. Thank you, and we're ready to start.
All right, now I'm going to be speaking in English. Which is weird because the audience is in Russian and I am in Russian. My name is Sonia Mezhericher, and I'm the coordinator of the forum How to Work Together, the Mediation Forum. And I thank you all for coming here and for getting online and watching this on YouTube. This is a big opportunity for us to talk about what mediation is, as not only a profession, but also as a process of generating art pieces, of generating dialogue around art pieces, and generating public programming. And we were hoping that this forum will be all Russian, that we will have visitors from all over Russia, but we are really lucky that it became international because of our beautiful guest today. This is Gamze Öztürk, who is our speaker, and she is the public program and exhibition manager of the Istanbul Biennial or Biennale, how you would prefer that. And she's also an architect and a PhD candidate who's doing her research on housing for degrowth. So we all welcome Gamze, and thank you again for coming to listen to this presentation. So Gamze.
Is it on? Ah, yeah. Thank you for the introduction. Yeah. And thank you for coming here. It's a great pleasure to be here today in this beautiful building and to witness all the great work that you have done so far. Today I will talk about the mediation experience at the Istanbul Biennial with a focus on the public program on the last edition. But before going into the detail, I will start to, I would love to give a brief information about the organizing foundation of the Biennial and the Biennial itself. So Istanbul Biennial is organized by Istanbul Foundation for Culture and Arts, founded in 1973. With an aim to support the advancement of culture and arts in Istanbul. It is not only organizing Istanbul Biennial, but it also organizes the film festival, the jazz festival, the music festival, the theater festival. And it also hosts concerts at its performance hall at Salon İKSV in the office building of the foundation. And it also offers creative events for kids and youngsters at İKSV Atkat. The foundation is also the organizer of the Pavilion of Turkey in Venice Biennial. And it also drafts reports with the aim of contributing to the cultural policy development in Turkey. The foundation has been organizing the Biennial since 1987. The Biennial aims to create a meeting point in Istanbul in the field of visual arts between artists from diverse cultures and the audience. Through the 17 previous editions, the Biennial created an international cultural network between local and international art circles, artists, curators, and art critics. The Biennial promotes knowledge and artistic production through the exhibition and alternative learning programs and generates spaces that bring together a wide range of visitors. So during the first two editions, we had a national representation model under the coordination of Beral Madra. But following the third edition of the Biennial, we had a curatorship system. So maybe we can go back to the slide about the first Biennial. So the first biennial was realized under the coordination of Beal Madra in 5 venues with the participation of 67 artists and attracted 10,000 visitors. And the second Istanbul Biennial, we can go to the next slide. So the second Istanbul Biennial had the same model and took place in 9 venues, attracted 12,000 visitors. And third one was directed by Vasıf Kortun, took place in 1 venue with the participation of 69 artists and attracted 14,000 visitors. So from the fourth Istanbul Biennial on, we had the curatorship system. So the fourth Istanbul Biennial was curated by René Bloch in 95 in 4 venues with the participation of 128 artists and attracted 65,000 visitors. So the 5th edition of the Biennial was curated by Rosa Martinez in 97 in 13 venues with the participation of 97 artists and attracted 70,000 visitors. So the 6th Istanbul, sorry, I'm just gonna give like a very brief info about each biennial and then I will go more into detail. So the 6th biennial was curated by Paolo Colombo in 1999 in 4 venues with the participation of 62 artists and attracted 40,000 visitors. The 7th edition was curated by Yuko Hasegawa, took place in 10 venues with the participation of 70 artists and almost 70,000 visitors attended the show. The 8th edition of the Biennial was curated by Dan Cameron, took place in 6 venues with the participation of 95 artists and 60,000 visitors attended. 9th edition of Istanbul Biennial was co-curated by Vasıf Kortun and Charles Esche, took place in 8 venues with the participation of 57 artists and attracted 50,000 visitors. So the 10th Istanbul Biennial, curated by Hu Hanru, took place in 5 venues with the participation of 109 artists and attracted 90,000 visitors. 11th edition of Istanbul Biennial was curated by a curatorial collective, What, How, and For Whom, took place in 3 venues with the participation of 77 artists and attracted almost around 100,000 visitors. So the 12th edition was co-curated by Adriano Pedrosa and Jans Hoffman. And Adriano Pedrosa is the curator of this upcoming edition of the Venice Biennial as well. So this edition took place in 2 venues with the participation of 123 artists and attracted more than 100,000 visitors. So the 13th Istanbul Biennial was curated by a curator from Turkey, Fulya Erdemci. Took place in 5 venues with the participation of 87 artists and attracted, for the first time, more than 300,000 visitors. And I'm going to explain why the number of visitors tripled in that specific edition. And 14th edition of Istanbul Biennial was drafted by Karolin Christoph Bakarjiev in 35 venues. It was spread all around the city with the participation of more than 100 artists, and it attracted more than 500,000 visitors. So the 15th edition was co-curated by an artist duo, M. Green and Roxette, took place in 7 venues with the participation of 56 artists and attracted more than 400,000 visitors. So the 16th edition of the Biennial was curated by Nicola Brouillot, took place in 7 venues with the participation of 56 artists, and again, it almost attracted 100,000 visitors. So the last edition of the Biennial, the 17th Istanbul Biennial, was co-curated by Utemete Bauer, Amar Kanvar, and David Te. It had no title. It took place in 13 venues with the participation of 55 artists, and it again attracted 500,000 visitors. So before going to this slide, maybe we can go back to this slide where we see all the venues of the last edition, because I would like to highlight something which I find important. This afternoon I was listening the session about urban mediation, and where I realized that we have a very nice challenge actually, which can be counted as urban mediation, because the biennial doesn't have a permanent space. So for each and every edition we look for new venues depending on the curatorial framework, and this gives us the chance to discover new venues. Also, our visitors are discovering new venues, and we also actually generate lists where we compile information about other places in the neighborhoods where the biennial venues are. So I think in this way, the biennial contributes to the urban memory of the visitors. So maybe this might be counted as urban mediation. So we can go to the next slide. So actually now you can see this is why the number of visitors was tripled in 2013, because the biennial became for free of charge in 2013. And ever since, we had consistently around 500,000 visitors. And so in addition to the exhibition, the biennial also organizes public programs, film programs, learning programs, and also offers guided tours. So in the scope of the public programs, we organize events in a wide range of forms, like concerts, like panel discussions, like festivals, and they don't only, take place in Istanbul, but also in some cities in Anatolia. So in this way, we reach more people, not only from Istanbul, but also from the other cities. So the learning programs, we also organize. I want to change the page. Yeah, thank you. So we also organize free online and face-to-face workshops for kids and youth in different age groups, inspired by the works exhibited as part of the biennial. So at the beginning, through these learning programs, we were reaching over 800 kids, for example, in 2007, but throughout the years, we started to reach around 300 children through the learning programs. And we can go to the next slide. So the publications. So as part of each and every edition, we publish a guidebook and a catalog, but sometimes we also publish some artist books. And we, in 2013, for the first time, we also published a children book, which was informative about the previous editions of the biennial. But for the first time in 2017, we published a children book which was specifically informative about that specific edition. And actually, it is a series of children books, so we continue to publish the new series in the next editions. So it's the Adventures of Istanbul Seagulls, Opti and Pesi. So through the Adventures of Seagulls, Opti and Pesi, the children can have clues to many biennial projects. So the books actually are written by Yekta Kopan, illustrated by Gökçe Akgül, and under the editorial direction of Burcu Ural Kopan. And on this slide, you can also see Yekta Kopan and Gökçe Akgül, because throughout the biennial, they also give workshops to the kids with those children books. So we will see a lot of pictures from those workshops. So this is from 2019. Again, 19. And this is from the last edition. Now we're gonna see a video. This is from the last edition. By the way, I brought some publications with me, which you can see under the screen. They can be circulated, I don't know, during the presentation or after the presentation.
Yeah, I think it's probably better that we do it after, because we will just go through the presentation. But yes, you're free to look around the books and the presentations, and also, you know, maybe give some comments to Gamze afterwards about them.
I would be happy to receive them.
Yeah.
And next slide. So the Biennial also has a guided tour program which allows visitors to see exhibitions in the company of specialists trained with the valuable contribution of the Koç Holding, which is the main sponsor of the Biennial. So the guided tours last for about an hour in selected venues of the Biennial, and they enable visitors to get a closer look at the artworks, to learn about the exhibition and its conceptual framework. Tours are held regularly at selected venues, every day except Mondays, 3 times a day. And we also hold tours in English, but they take place 2 times a week. We also offer private tours after visiting hours. We call them a night at the Biennial. And we also have stroller tours through which we offer to parents and caregivers who would like to visit the Biennial with their little ones. And you will also see some pictures from stroller tours. And also in the last 2 editions, we also had tours for refugees and some accessible tours for disabled people. Now we are going to see some pictures from, stroller mornings, and also from accessible tours. So, permanent works. So, permanent work projects actually might be also counted as urban mediation. So the 2017 was the 13th anniversary of the Biennial. So that year, the Istanbul Biennial decided to invite 1 artist per Biennial to produce a work to be permanently exhibited in a public space in Istanbul. So the first work is this one, is the neon sculpture, Where Do We Go From Here by Ugo Rondinone. It was initially exhibited at the Taksim Square in '99 in the 6th Istanbul Biennial. So the work has been reunited with the city in its new venue, Mustafa Kemal Cultural Center, near the second bridge over the Bosphorus. And the second permanent work, which we installed in 2019, was a children playground by Monster Chetwind. So the work was inspired by fairy tales and mythology, and it was installed in Maçka Sanat Park. So the third permanent work that we installed in 2022 in the scope of the 17th Istanbul Biennial was a work by Ayşe Erkmen. She produced a permanent sculptural work which is called Golden Horn in Golden Horn, located in Akşemseddin Park between Balat Hospital and the ferry dock.
This edition of the Biennial, the 17th Istanbul Biennale, developed during COVID. First lockdowns happened basically where David and I live in Singapore. Turkey was not yet in lockdown, nor was Delhi where Amarkanda lives. So we went through this period of not knowing if we can travel. Most of the artists couldn't travel. So we were really wondering what is meaningful in such a moment. So we were discussing, can the Biennale go elsewhere? What can a Biennale say to a place? What is the role of a Biennial like the Istanbul Biennial here? So we had a lot of introspection, discussing also with the core Biennial team, with the director BGR, what is the role of this Biennale in this moment in time? And then when things slowly opened up, we still wanted to continue this kind of dialogues that we had over 1.5 years with artists, with many scholars and researchers actually from Turkey and from Istanbul, to understand the situation better and to communicate the current condition of Turkey and of Istanbul to those we invite. And what we were very interested is what is shared, what is resonating elsewhere, what that is produced elsewhere might resonate here. Because what you want to establish is a dialogue with the place, but also a dialogue with the people living at the place. Because the majority of the visitors here, although many international people do attend the Biennale, is a local audience. And we also wanted to see how can we expand and the audience for the arts. This is kind of a dialogue that we try to establish. On the other side, we also have quite unusual places where people gather. So a space of trust, which also has been very important for us to say, if we want to have a dialogue, we basically also have to open up a space of trust. I think one of the biggest toxins in our social interaction is mistrust. And we always think the others, they want something from us, they take something from us. And hospitality and generosity, I think, are the first steps of having a more peaceful social togetherness, which doesn't need to be always that we love each other, but I think to tolerate each other and to accept each other is very necessary in a moment of time when we really see a planetary crisis.
So in this video, Meta Bauer, one of the curators of the last edition of the Biennial, was explaining the ideas behind the last edition. The Biennial invited the curatorial group by the beginning of 2020, when the pandemic has just started. So the curatorial group took this opportunity to think and act differently under those circumstances. So they felt a need to focus on process rather than on production. So I would like to read an excerpt from the curatorial statement of the last edition. There may be no great gathering, no orchestrated coming together in one time and place. Instead, it might be a dispersal, an invisible fermentation. Its threads will be drawn together, but they will multiply and diverge at different paces, crossing here and there, but with no noisy culmination, no final knot. Let this biennial be composed. It may begin before it is to begin and continue well after it is over. So the main concept of this edition was composting process. And through the composting process, the Biennial supported and made visible long-term projects. Because actually the curatorial group didn't want to show final products which can be only seen in the period of the Biennial and then be forgotten, but they rather preferred the visitors to experience the processes, not only the period of the Biennial, but also before and after the exhibition. And that's why actually the Biennial was in a form of public program. So the Biennial itself was crafted as a public program. So all the events in the public program came out from the projects which were exhibited in the venues of the last edition. In the scope of the public program, we showcase approximately 250 events spanning a range of forms, including poetry readings, festivals, concerts, radio programs, all designed to engage diverse audiences. This framework, facilitating multiple encounters with the same artworks in different contexts, enriches the relationship between the audience and the exhibited works. I'm gonna talk in detail about 3 categories in the public program, actually, which are public program as publication, public program around food, and public program as learning programs. But before I go into the detail about those 3 categories, I would love to give a little bit glimpse of the events which were held in the scope of the public edition. So this is a work by Renato Leotta, an Italian artist. Actually, we exhibited his work in a historical hammam, Biennial Hammam in Istanbul, where he presented a sound and mixed media installation. His research were focusing on an aquatic plant, which is endemic throughout the Mediterranean Sea. So he made a lot of site visits where he collected leaf samples and made recordings of the plant. And he turned them into an installation in the historical hammam. But he also collaborated with a composer, Federico Bisozzi, who wrote a new score inspired by the sound recordings of the plants. And actually an orchestrate played the new score in Saint-Benoît French High School during the opening week. So now on the screen you see a picture from the concert. So Footsteps is another project and a learning process, an attempt to collect stories from the margins of wars. This project was drafted by Çiğdem Öztürk, a journalist, in collaboration with a photographer and media artist, Omar Baraktar, from Artier Istanbul, an art space founded by Syrian artists living in Istanbul to provide others like them with support, visibility, and a place to work. In the scope of this project, a library established in Artier Istanbul, which was comprising books dealing with the stories and experiences of war. And in the scope of projects, they held readings, and they generated podcasts, and they held online gatherings and offline gatherings in the space. And this project is by Bread and Puppet Theater, founded in 1963 by Peter Schumann. So we organized a series of parades and performances developed with a diverse group of local participants throughout the opening week of the Biennial in public spaces. So this is from one of the Biennial venues, Gazhane Museum. Now you see an image from the installation of the artist Tarık Atui. He has an ongoing project through which he actually records the sounds of harbors and shipyards. So the curators invited him to extend this project for Istanbul Biennial. And he came to Istanbul and collaborated with local sound recordists to record the sounds the harbors and shipyards of Istanbul. And he made a mixed media installation also in another historical hammam, where he also conducted workshops with the kids. Silent University, initiated by Ahmet Öğüt, is an autonomous solidarity and exchange-based educational platform led by lecturers, consultants, and research fellows who are themselves displaced people and forced migrants. So in the scope of this project, they held online and offline gatherings. And through this slide, you see an offline gathering at Saha Studio. Maria Lukman is an artist and educator with a process-centered, research-driven approach to studio-based creation. So she created an aquatic garden in one of the venues of the Biennial, which is Zeytinburnu Medicinal Garden, where we also had our press conference. And she collaborated with Istanbul-based musicians called Tümata. Their practice is based on musical therapy, and they also performed during the press conference. So this is another very important project that we had in the last edition. So we invited a radio station, Açık Radyo, to participate the Biennial. So Açık Radyo is an Istanbul-based independent and collectively owned radio station run and programmed mainly by volunteers. Founded by 62 partners holding equal shares, the station provides a unique, egalitarian, and collectively run public forum, open to all the sounds, colors, and vibrations of the universe. So, Açık Radyo's contribution to the 70th Istanbul Biennial began with a 26-week radio program, Radio Biennial, which was aired every week on Mondays between the months of May and October 21, and was followed by podcasts in English in 22. And in this slide, you also see an installation by them, because Açık Radyo's dialogues with the Biennial participants and audience continued with an open studio at Barınan, one of the Biennial venues, featuring live broadcasts, radio performances and discussions, as well as an installation of a selection from the radio sound and visual archives of 25 years. And in this installation, they also presented a special screening of Muntada's 2010 documentary on Açık Radyo. Now we see some pictures from their space in Barınhan. So, Danarto, DKK is another project. Actually, they're a research group that aims to unfold different trajectories of the life and work of a writer, artist, designer, and theater maker, Danarto, from Indonesia. So for the Biennial, Danarto connects with contemporary thinkers from Turkey, including musicians, poets, and graphic artists, to realize a possible context for Danarto's legacy. They had an installation in Barınhan, where they also had a number of music performances and binding workshops. Arahmayani Faisal, thank you. So, on the occasion of the Biennial, Arahmayani brought her ongoing flag project to Istanbul. Centered on community participation and democratic engagement, each iteration of the flag project revolves around communally identified keywords and issues stitched onto brightly colored flags. which were later waved by the participants in a choreographed processions that the artist conducts with each community. So now you see a picture from Gazhane Museum, where the artists made a performance with the flags. I'm going to talk in detail about this one, so we can skip. So now we arrived to those three categories. So the first category, public program as a publication. So in the scope of the biennial, we published magazines, poetry books, and other publications. So I'm going to talk about two of them. The first one is Annex. We can go to the next slide. So the artist collective Oda Projesi, meaning Room Project, was founded in 2000 as a non-profit independent space to activate and actualize communal exchange and dialogue. So their multi-format participation in the biennial was informed by the collective's long-standing research into motherhood and production, and a series of meetings and interviews conducted with groups of mothers and non-mothers from the cultural sector in various geographies. Audio excerpts from their ongoing conversation series were featured in the weekly transmissions of Radio Biennial at Açık Radyo, parasitically leaking into its regular programming and questioning concepts like care, precariousness, and sisterhood. The collective launched the 7th edition of its Annex newspaper during the biennial with a series of public and more intimate conversations. By the way, Anne means mother. So the name is coming from, because it was about, the publication was about their conversations about motherhood. So the name of the publication is also coming from the word mother. Visitors could find the printed version of the Annex in the biennial venues for free. And they also had an installation in Gazhane. So Creep magazine by Eva Egerman. So the fifth issue of Creep magazine published on the occasion of the 17th Istanbul Biennial. Egerman connects her research with the work of artists, activists, and scholars from Turkey working on and around themes disability. Along with the printed magazines available at biennial venues, the edition is available as an accessible format online at creepmagazine.evaegerman.com. Now you see a copy of Creep magazine. In the last edition, in two venues, in Barınhan and in Küçük Mustafa Paşa Hamamı, we also had reading rooms where the visitors could read the publications of the biennial for free. So the second category, public program around food. So the first project is Wallowland by cooking.
So, Gulin.
Yeah, yeah, we can. Okay, we can stay here. So the first project is Wallowland by Cooking Sections, which is founded by Daniel Fernandez Pascual and Alon Schwabe. They explore the systems that organize the world through food. And their research-based practice examines the overlapping boundaries between visual arts, architecture, ecology, and geopolitics. Yeah, we can go.
So Gulinla is an artist from Istanbul that we commissioned her to write basically a song for the buffaloes that will be performed for the first time in the festival.
Hayvanlarla zaten çok sıkı bağlarım var. O yüzden mandalarla ilgili bir şarkı teklifi gelince önce tabii ki şaşırdık, yalan söylemeyeceğim. Mandalarla ilgili mi falan, bildiğimiz mandalar mı gibi diyaloglar oldu aslanlarımızda.
Everyone is welcome to come and visit Wallowlands, our Muhalabeshi milk pudding shop in Istanbul as part of the 17th Istanbul Biennial.
So, Wallowlands, a new commission for the 17th Istanbul Biennial, traces the interactions of Istanbul's water buffaloes with multiple ecologies in the wetlands around the city that are under threat of disappearance. In collaboration with many experts, a series of metabolic surveys of the life forms interacting with water buffaloes was conducted at different times of the year. These interspecies visions laid the foundation for the first Water Buffalo Festival that was launched alongside the biennial and became an annual celebration to continue the project beyond the last edition. So we had the first Buffalo Festival in 2022, and this June we are gonna have the second Buffalo Festival, so it's going on. And they had an installation, a site-specific installation at Büyükdere 35 in the form of a muhallebici, a pudding shop, where the metabolic surveys are presented through different materials, tastings, and sound. But they also organized a Buffalo Festival where they held like walking tours, which visitors could watch the buffaloes, and they organized concerts in the scope of the festival, and they commissioned a new song about buffaloes to an artist, which you saw on the video. So this was one of the, I think, most fun projects from the last edition. So Dumpling Festival. So the festival was organized in the scope of the project called Dumpling Post. And Dumpling Post, this project, took its inspiration from Kayseri Dumpling Festival, organized by Hrant Dink Foundation in Istanbul in 2019, in response to the repeated banning of its conference on the social, cultural, and economic history of Kayseri by the governorships of Kayseri and Şişli. So after the governorships were banning the conference, they had this great idea to organize a dumpling festival in the place of the conference. So with the hundreds of participants, the festival became an alternative forum to celebrate pluralism through dumplings and acted as a space for solidarity against the ban. So after the curators of the last edition heard this story from the team of Hrant Dink Foundation, they got the inspiration to publish Dumpling Post as a project. And in the scope of the project, they also wanted to organize a dumpling festival, which took place in the building of Hrant Dink Foundation during the opening week. And you see a website, because Dumpling Post is a publication issued in 3 monthly installments online via this website, and also with a printed edition distributed at the biennial venues. And through the website, you can see dumpling recipes, stories, essays, and opinion pieces addressing a wide array of social, historical, and political phenomena. And now you see some pictures from the festival. where we ask people to contribute to the process of making dumplings and then had the joy of eating them. And now you're going to see a video from the festival. Yeah. So the last category is public program as a learning program. In this category, I'm going to talk about two projects. The first one is Zip Zap Circus School by Angela Ferreira. Her work points out the maybe we can watch the video and then I can continue. So her work points out the potential of unfulfilled dreams by linking two unbuilt projects: a modernist museum project by Miss van der Rohe and a school project by Pancho Guedes for the Zip Zap Circus, which teaches circus skills to children from all walks of life in Cape Town. So the circus workshops were held at the Zip Zap Circus School installation in the Museum Gazhane within the scope of the 17th Istanbul Biennial. And these workshops focused on upcycling fabric waste into circus materials and learning about circus culture. And you'll see some pictures from the workshops. So the last project that I would like to talk about is called What Are the Birds Thinking? So What Are the Birds Thinking is a project realized by the Istanbul Biennial and İKSV Altkat as a collaboration between Education Reform Initiative, Hisar Schools, Teachers Network, Suna and Inan Kıraç Foundation Para Museum Learning Programs, and Today at Apple. Focusing on children aged 6 and 14, the project aims to initiate a creative process to redirect the imagination of children, as well as accompanying adults, teachers, and experts, and reconnect them with birds, nature, and non-humans, and start multidimensional conversations about all that connects to the birds. The project invites children and accompanying adults from all over Turkey to lift up their heads and think about birds. It helped develop children's ability to listen, observe, concentrate, record, and research by posing questions such as, what are the birds thinking? If they could speak to us, what would they say? And what can we learn by watching the birds? So in the scope of this project, we organized bird watching events with the participation of the kids. And we also organized art labs by collaborating with Apple in their store in Istanbul. So these are pictures from bird watching events. And now you will see some pictures from the art labs for kids, which was held in the store of Apple. And actually, we also made an open call to all bird watchers aged between 6 and 14 and asked them to follow the guidebooks on this website and upload their answers and observations in the form of text, painting, photograph, audio, or video formats. And this website can be still visited. So, spasiba.
Thank you, Gamze, so much for this very big presentation. I feel like I finally have visited the Istanbul Biennial, even though I haven't been, unfortunately. I've always wanted to. This is a time to ask some questions, so maybe our visitors would also generate some questions. In a few moments, we will give the microphones to anyone who wants to speak up and ask Gamze about something, but I personally also wanted to say something. First of all, I mean, we spent the last 2 days, you and I, talking about not only the presentation, but also how it connects to the mediation, because of course we invited you to the mediation forum, so we really take into consideration the term that it is and where it came from and what it means. And I feel like your presentation shows us not only, whereas the forum itself during the day, it showed us some different approaches to mediation, so the skills that mediators should have, how they should approach city mediation, whereas the presentation of the Istanbul Biennial shows us that actually mediation is a way to generate events, not only like talk with the visitors of exhibitions, but also how to generate public programming that invites people to share their opinions. I mean, the Dumpling Festival, maybe we'll also share this thing with, because as Russians, we really love dumplings. We have many versions of them. And I feel like, you know, food is such a dialogue based art, because, you know, any kitchen you imagine in your home, it's a place where people actually gather and talk. And to make it a public event at the Biennial and talk about art and also political meaning of the Dumpling Festival, it's a really beautiful way to show that mediation can become something large scale, not only something downshifted as you know, just having a dialogue with the visitors, but also something large and big and festival-like. So my question for you, and maybe also you could speak on behalf of your team, is: do you even use the term mediation, and what is mediation for you? What do you think about when you hear that word?
I can speak on behalf of myself.
Yes, great.
Actually, we don't use the word mediation, but for example, I mean, we have a public program, but we don't call it as a mediation program. But first of all, maybe I can first tell that I see art as a form of mediation, because through artworks, I mean, the audience can have the chance to have a better understanding about the things that we are facing at the moment or which were faced before. So it's a kind of mediator which gives you a better understanding on things. And Istanbul Biennial, of course, is organizing an exhibition where we exhibit artworks. But also, I think through our programming, through our programs, we try to make our visitors to have a better engagement with the projects and with the biennial. So all the programming that we are doing, I see them as mediation programs.
Thank you. Yeah, that answers my question, because I also think, after seeing especially the 3 programs that you highlighted, the publication programming, which of course is really important during, you know, Biennale is a thing that happens for a short amount of time, and then for 2 years you wait for it to happen again, and to have a publication that sort of analyzes the midway results of what has happened, what are we thinking about, and what people are thinking about.
Always go back. And
yeah, you can always go back, and you can sort of also changed your course of the direction of the Biennale while you have the publications, also reflect on it. And also the Dumpling Festival and the bird watching, I really love that it's quite a big scale, as I said before, but also quite general event that can happen anywhere else. Like you can have a dumpling festival somewhere else in a different city, in a different country. You can watch birds in every city, probably. But it has such a unique and local meaning for the Istanbul as well. Like it kind of reflects on both the personal and the global and overly shared experience that people have. And I'm really thankful that we got the opportunity to read and watch some videos and hear about it from you. The other question that I had is maybe, since this Biennale was quite different from the other ones, as you said before, with 250 events, are there any results of the Biennale, like your internal ones in your company, in the foundation, that you would like to continue on with, that you would like to bring to the next Biennale, or you kind of want to start afresh again?
Of course, I mean, there are things that we would like to bring up to the next edition based on our previous experiences. But due to the fact that we always work with a new curator in each edition, it is very much depending on the ideas of the curator of that specific edition, because the curator of each edition, you know, coming up with new ideas which are shaping the biennial and the programming around the biennial. And so the curators of the last edition, so I have been working for the biennial for 10 years now, and throughout the years that I have been working for, we have never had a biennial in a form of public program. So this was the first time in my working period that the curators wanted to shape the exhibition in the form of a public program and invited the participants to contribute to the public program, and through which actually the visitors could have the chance to experience the same works in different formats. Mm-hmm. So for example, I mean, you could see the sound installation of Renato Leotto in Çinili Hamam, mm-hmm. but also you have the chance to experience the same work in a form of concert in another venue. Mm-hmm. So I think this was, in a way, multiplying the experience of the visitors. I don't know if I went far away from your question at the end.
No. I feel like it also kind of reflects on this idea that, you know, mediators all around the world try to circulate, is that no one viewing art, no one has the same opinion or the same experience. Even if it's a painting just hanging in a gallery, everyone's going to experience it differently. So when you have also, as a team, curating and managing Biennale, this approach to showcase that even music can be, you know, shown in different ways, as an installation, as a concert, as a recording, as one musician influencing the other one. I feel like it also really reflects on just like this human condition of just us experiencing everything differently all the time and maybe not agreeing with each other. And, you know, a person could meet someone else who viewed that piece as a concert and then the other one as an installation, and they could talk about it and see what the commonalities or the differences were. And also, I had one last question, and I wanted to ask, which of the events from your experience, you probably have visited some of them, maybe not most of them or not all of them because it's too many events for one person to visit, but which ones from your experience generated the most kind of dialogue that you saw? You know, people kind of being maybe surprised by the fact that this was a part of Biennale, or maybe very influenced and how do you say, inspired by it? Or maybe you were, you know, you can also say from your experience, not from everyone else.
This will be a personal answer, I think. I think the projects around food, like the Dumpling Festival and the Buffalo Festival, because food unites people. And it stimulates different emotions, different senses. And you don't only experience the work in one way, like just seeing or visiting a space, but you also have the chance to eat, you know, talk about your eating experience with other people. I think this unites people. But on the other hand, I also would like to add that as food is our one of basic needs, it has a, I think, big power. Also unite people in another sense. For example, Dumpling Festival. So the conference couldn't happen because the governorship banned the conference, but they couldn't ban the Dumpling Festival. So I think the gatherings around food since they are like the primary things, they can have everyone. So that's why I think the projects around food are that they had big impacts in me.
I mean, yes, this is an idea that I feel like all of the participants of the mediation forum should take a note on, you know, just make mediation around food and then everyone will be very influenced. And I mean, it's not even a joke. I really believe that, you know, food is a thing that we all love. We all love different foods, but we kind of can talk about it. And, you know, so many food shows happening at the same time. And food, I would love to see a food exhibition as well at some point. I don't know what it would look like, but maybe. So maybe right now would be a time for our visitors to ask questions if they have them. Does anyone have a question for Gamze, Ekaterina? Or we have a microphone. Our visitor experience colleague will give it to you. My only note is please ask the question in Russian because we have simultaneous translation happening. Thank you. One sec. Oh, there it is. There yeah, yeah. Now we can go. Sorry.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask you, Gamze, if possible, to talk a bit more about the people who give guided tours with you. How do you enroll with them? How do you find them? And how do you prepare them? What kind of training do you give them? Thank you.
So I think one of the good things about the Biennial that we work with young people who are mostly university students. So we made open calls and they're applying for being exhibition guides, and like installation assistants. And they are mostly the university students. So we made these open calls through our website some months prior to the opening. And in the summer of the Biennial, because it takes place in September, so in that summer, we have a wonderful guided tour coordinator, Pelin Kuş. She is actually educating the guides for a month prior to the opening. So the guides actually can have chance to talk with the curators because during it coincides with the installation period. So in that period, we also host our curators, our artists who are installing their artworks, And so during that period that they are working on the works with Pelin, they also have the chance to visit the biennial venues and see the works which are being installed and have the chance to talk with the artists and the curators. So that's how they are getting prepared before the exhibition.
Thank you. Does anyone else want to ask a question, perhaps? If not, then I guess this is the end of your presentation. Thank you again, Gamze. And I also wanted to say a big thank you to our Russian Sign Language translators. I'm sorry I didn't mention in advance, but it's Irina Moskvina and Margarita Startsova. Thank you so much. And thank you all for coming and for listening to this presentation. We will see all of you tomorrow at the second day of the Mediation Forum. Thank you so much.